This one's for all of you Protoss players returning to the game after a long break or hopping into ladder for the first time. It's going to be a very safe and solid beginner Protoss opening that you can use in all three matchups. Of course, as an opening, this guide is only going to cover the first few minutes of the game, and from there you can branch off however you like. If you are one of these players hopping into ladder for the first time though, I strongly recommend you go and watch daily number 16 before you watch this video, as it talks a lot about the fundamental things you should be focusing on, and I'm going to take that as assumed knowledge as we go through this video. So let's not dilly-dally, let's hop right on into game. Alright, here we go, and immediately let's start probe production, and we're going to rally our first probe over towards our ramp. As soon as that probe rallies out, I'm going to set the rally point back to the minerals. There we go. And I want to build the pylon so the energy field just barely grazes the edge of the ramp, the top of that ramp. So I can go, there we go. Place that pylon just like that. You can see it's just touching the edges of the ramp. And this 15th probe moves over, and that's going to be your next builder. And you want to build a gateway with a single space there so that units can get in and out of your base. So you find the edge and then you go up one. Beautiful. You want to drop a gas right after that. So 16 gateway, 16 gas. It's not the biggest deal if the gas goes down a few seconds later on 17 supply. Oh, I forgot. You had to send the scout out right after putting the gateway down. So a few seconds later on that scout, then I would probably prefer, but that's alright. Now, this probe, 18th probe, is going to rally straight down to your natural to build your nexus. Put guys on gas as soon as that gas finishes. You're going to keep building probes up to 19 supply. So I'm at 19 supply. I don't want to queue up any more probes after that. And here we go. Let's build that nexus on 19. You still don't want to queue up any more probes because you want to go for a 19 cyber core as well. It's just nice, very safe opening. Alright, there we go. So restart probe production after that cyber core is down, and the next thing you want to do is 21 supply. You want to go for a second pylon. So we're going to put that up here so we can start having these pylons around our mineral line to provide us some overcharge defense later on. So later on we'll end up with a pylon there and a pylon there as well. We're also going to put pylons at the front. Now the next thing you're focusing on is you're waiting for this cybernetics core to finish. The moment that finishes, we want to start warp gate research and adept production. Now if you're someone who prefers stalkers or you really love sentries, feel free to build those instead and, you know, play this your own way. But I think if you're a complete beginner, and really, you know, it's just good to go adepts, even if you're not a beginner, because they're such a good general purpose unit. So now that my natural's finishing, I'm going to rally down there. Oh, I forgot to build that mothership core. So you're meant to build your mothership core right after the adept and the warp gate research with your next 100 gas. So just a very slight delay on that, no big deal. And then at 30 supply, we want to drop a second and third gateway. So queuing up another adept, and ooh, that puts me up there in the supply count. So let's put down 2 more gateways. Alright, now right after those gateways go down, you want to drop a gas. Second gas here on 32 to 34 supply. And you can change your rally point in your main back to its own minerals because you're going to need some extra probes to put on that gas. Now, as I said, in case you're worried about a frontal rush, you can get a pylon at the front there, which you can overcharge. You want to keep building adepts as much as possible. Keep queuing up probes. The gas finishes in the main, and I can go, okay, 3 probes on that gas immediately. And you'll notice, oh, look at this time's out. So I've built 3 extra probes in that time, and now I can rally back to my natural. I can set both of my nexi down there, and that is beautiful. Now with your next bit of money free, you want to go robotics, and then a Twilight Council. So for a lot of you guys, if you're not too efficient at spending your money, it's okay to just put down both at the same time, or you can put down the robo a little bit earlier and then add the Twilight. But it's important to get both of those tech trees. Let's keep building pylons, continually building probes. And I'm just going to wait for warp gate research to finish, then I'm going to transform all these gateways to warp gates and see how we go. If you're ever worried about what your opponent's doing, I like to just leave a worker outside their base. Really good kind of basic way to get scouting. So warp gate research finishes just after 4 minutes. You want to transform your gateways into warp gates, and you want to non-stop warp in units, usually adepts. Now as you hit saturation, so once you have 16 or more minerals on your natural, you do want to take both gases there. Now that the robotics is done, we want to start up an observer, and we want to start up adept glaives, and we want to chrono boost both of these upgrades. If you don't chrono boost them, it's not the most important thing in the world, but the better you do with it, the cleaner everything is. So more pylons, making sure I'm not getting supply blocked. Some zerglings poking around here. The observer goes across the map. So we've got that observer down there. It's going to go check out my opponent's base. And I'm going into immortal production now. Now at this next point, what you want to do is you want to actually make 4 gateways. Now it's okay if you're not constantly warping out of your gateways, but you do want to be trying to get used to using them as much as you possibly can. Now we've got a little bit of an Artosis pile in there, so we'll build that. But 4 more gateways, guys, and that's going to complete your 2-base production. So you can pretty much non-stop build Immortals and Adepts from here. What I do want to say is you always want to drop a 3rd base pretty soon, right around this point. And you at least want to be looking to take it, but you don't necessarily need to probe it up. So right at this point, as this Nexus goes down, is going to be the end of this build order guide. Bum, bum, bum. And that's it, guys, from here. So I'm going to cut this off at 5 minutes 50. From here, you could build a warp prism and just keep warping in Adepts, not build any more probes, and go all in. Since you've got 2 bases saturated, just use the 3rd to transfer workers over to as your bases mine out. Or you can not warp in constantly. You can start adding forges for upgrades, Storm, Colossus Tech, whatever the hell you want. Really, the world is your oyster. This is just an opening. Gets you to a position where you have a lot of army, a good economy, and it's very user-friendly. So if you make a mistake or two with this build, it's very safe, and you should be able to come on back. So that about does this part of the video, and then we'll go in and talk about some of the other details up next. Okay, so the other thing which I should talk about quickly is walling off. Now, with your 2nd and 3rd gateway, remember I put the 2nd and 3rd gateway here, my 2nd pylon was in the main base. Against a Zerg player, you always want to wall off the front of your natural very early on. So imagining I have my wall off there, my 2nd pylon I would actually place near the front, specifically so that I could do this. Once again, energy shield kind of touching the edges of the area you want to wall off. And then you can just imagine you're going to kind of go, okay, gateway there, core, you know, there or something like that. I'm pretty sure you can see, once again, building grid, guys, is very important. If you're not using this, options, gameplay, display build grid, make sure that's turned on. That's a really important thing to have. So you can do that. Once again, look at this. Oh, look, little 1 space gap. This is a map which is easier to do it on. You might need to practice a bit on your other maps, but do always try and wall off against Zerg and have this single space gap. And this is something I didn't talk about too much either, but with your gaps, and even with the one on top of your ramp, something you do want to get the hang of is trying to hold position. So this Adept, for instance, I have just put on hold position there. So if my opponent comes in with a bunch of Zerglings and they're trying to get past me, it's blocked. And they're going to go, let me in, let me in. And that's really important. So if you've got a wall at your ramp and a wall down here as well, that's just perfect. So walling off is super important against Zerg. So maybe you just go ahead with this because you forget. And you know what? Most of the time, if you keep building Adepts, you build those Immortals on time, you'll get away with it. But every now and then you will get punished. So it's a really good habit to start learning your wall-offs early on. Alright guys, so the last thing we are going to talk about quickly is scouting. I did mention earlier you send out that early worker scout. I didn't really talk about what you're looking for. You're not looking for that much. You just want to figure out where your opponent spawned, and you will very quickly learn to recognize when your opponent's going for anything a little bit out of the ordinary, a little bit crazy. You can also hide that worker somewhere on the map at their 3rd or 4th, or you can just send a new worker across the map, whatever you prefer. But you do want to scout at 3 minutes. You could even send your first Adept if you prefer. And you want to go in and you want to say, do you have an expansion? And if they don't have an expansion, freak the hell out. You want to seriously just be like, oh god, okay, what do I do? Ah! And like actually, you know, just get really, oh, sorry, wrong scene. Get really freaked out, build lots of units. I'm joking, of course, you don't want to freak out, but you want to make sure you build extra pylons at the front. Make sure you warp in units non-stop off your, what would be 3 gateways. And try and do a little bit of follow-up scouting if you can, you know, see if they're doing anything like that requires detection or air units that require anti-air. Otherwise, it's just going to be make lots of Immortals, Adepts and a couple of Immortals, and you'll be able to hold on just fine. The other thing is that Observer, which you're normally going to be building first out of that Robotics. And your observer is just going to give you, I mean, it's basically map hacks. It's an invisible scouting unit. You can just float through their base. And you really just want to look at their army and you want to say to yourself, okay, is there anything special I need to do against that? And that's something you'll learn more and more with experience. You can watch some of my dailies on scouting, but for the most part, stick to just building lots of Adepts and Immortals, and you're just keeping an eye on how fast are they expanding. If they're expanding too fast, maybe you want to attack them. If they're not expanding very quickly, maybe you're worried about a big attack, so you've got to build more units. And just generally, it gives you a good feel for how far ahead or behind you are. Just looking at what your opponent's up to and seeing if there's any crazy compositions out of them, like mass air, that require obviously a big change up in your army, since none of these guys shoot up right now. Remember guys, there's no absolute guide for just winning StarCraft. Every single game you go into, you're playing an opponent who wants to win just as badly as you. They're going to be fighting just as hard for it. And yeah, I mean, generally it's one of those things where you can't look at a guide for StarCraft and then immediately win games. It's not like getting a Hearthstone deck list and then just like, oh, I've got this, look, I can win games. This really is just a building block so to give you some direction for the first few minutes of the game, but it's not going to win you games. It's up to you to figure out how to play from there, experiment, find the things you enjoy and find fun. But I think this video combined with daily number 16 should really put you on that right path, that once you've played a fair number of games, you will be able to start beating your opponents consistently. Of course, as I said there, a fair number of games, that's important because it can take you sometimes 10, 15 games on ladder before it figures out where you should be on that ladder, your skill is, and where it starts actually giving you good matches. So if you are a brand new beginner, be prepared to lose all of your first matches. Don't be disheartened. The ladder algorithm is just making sure you're not a smurf or anything like that so that it can match you up against people of your own skill level. All right, guys, so that's about it. Keep a critical mindset. You'll fall in love with StarCraft. It is the best 1v1 game in the world. I would say the best game in the world. It's so hard and so fulfilling when you actually put in the work to improve. So please send in your replays using Feinting Tactics, guys. For this week's iCast, your freaking awesome replays. Doesn't matter what skill level you are. That's the challenge for this week. Get a fake maneuver going one side, hit from the other side, and do all of that. So that's all for now, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a cactus, and of course, punch a garden gnome in the gonads. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.